Bonds got screwed. He should be in the Hall of Fame. Well, I'll tell you what, man, my man Curt Schilling was so on when he was talking about this Phillies team. And I got to tell you, I kept thinking this. When Curt said this, the key is going to be watching how they play against Verlander. And I remember I'm watching and I'm going, man, if they beat Verlander, that's got to give them so much hope and injection of energy. Because Verlander, what was he? 5 innings, man. He was mowing those dudes down. Let's get to a man who's 11-2 in the postseason. He's our friend, and he's so kind to join us now and give a couple minutes of his time here. Curt, what do you make of what's going on? And by the way, Curt, I have played in some of the biggest college football stadiums and NFL stadiums. And last night at the bank, Curt, I've never seen anything like it. Have you? Hey, I can't hear you, Curt. Yeah, you're muted.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you,
Sorry.
Curt, have you ever seen anything like that last night?
I was expecting that, but you expect things like that, but you never are ready for them. And that was, what was it? The University of Penn, they registered on the seismograph.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what though? When all is said and done, that's Philadelphia, man. I mean, it is the greatest place in the world to be a home player and probably one of the worst in the world to be a visitor.
Do you agree, Curt, that when you watch Bryce Harper play, he's turned into must-see television? And to me, it's almost like Bonds coming to the plate, or when Strawberry came to the plate, or some of those guys. He's must-see television, and you're not surprised. You said it.
No, again, it's got a very artesian feel to it. And, David was the best October hitter I ever saw. I mean, if you go back and look at his numbers, his last World Series was one of the greatest displays of offense I've ever seen. But he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, when he was 13 or 16? You meet people in life sometimes that are born to do things. This is what Bryce Harper was born to do. Hit a baseball in October. You could make an argument, and I think it's a valid argument, when you sign a guy to a monster contract, if he helps you win a World Series, that contract, no matter what it costs, is paid for. A World Series win is worth hundreds of millions to potentially $1 billion+ for a team. Just one. And it's not over yet, obviously. But it's funny to listen to people talk about momentum and this and that. And in October, momentum is the day's starting pitcher, really, honestly. And I've been stunned by a couple things. The comeback on Verlander was mind-boggling to me. Nolan Wheeler getting their asses handed to him for 10 runs in 2 starts? Yeah. Didn't see that coming either. So you can't, and I hate to use this as an example, but I'll use it as an example. When RJ and I were going right, I remember them saying, hey, you got RJ in game 5, or you got Schilling in game 4, or RJ in game 6. You can't look at a starting pitcher for the most part in the series and say, well, this guy's going to get the ball on next day. Like, you're certainly not feeling that about Verlander, even though, he is who he is. Nolan Wheeler haven't given you confidence they're going to turn around. Both these offenses, other than the shutdown from the Phillies staff last night, are clicking a little bit. But to get back to your original question, Bryce Harper, this is what he was born to do, and you can see it. And I know it sounds cliche, but there were guys who I played with who I knew that you could see and you could feel a difference. And David was one of those guys. Like, I guarantee you, even though his heart rate was obviously always elevated when he went to the plate in October, there is a certain, this is where I belong and this is my at-bat kind of a feel. And Bryce Harper gives me every vibe of that feeling that way.
I love that you're saying this because, Curt, to me, those Red Sox teams, I always thought they went through Manny. But you're saying they went through Poppy.
Well, they did. But you had that was the beauty of it. You had them both.
But the best 3-4 hitters in like ever.
There's an argument that they're with Gehrig and Mantle for Gehrig for a couple years. But yeah, I mean, you know, you had one, if not one, the other. You know, Manny won the MVP of the World Series in 04.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was Keith Folk or Bart Bellhorn, but Manny won the World Series MVP. David never took a postseason at bat off, and you know that's the thing. My philosophy as a pitcher is that every at bat in the postseason, from a hitter's perspective, is bottom of the ninth, tying run on third. Doesn't matter what the situation. Every hitter that's worth his weight in salt in October treats that at bat that way. So as a pitcher, you're facing that every at bat. And if you think about guys who want to be at the plate in the bottom of the ninth with the tying run on or winning run on, it's a guy like David. So he's never out of his element. And it's just you know, you play for, and I've seen nothing in any capacity that gives me reason to believe that Bryce Harper isn't turning into or hasn't become that guy. I mean, obviously the team is feeding off him. I'm curious to know what he said to the Bohm last night before the at-bat. Because I know everybody's about tipping pitches, which is complete. That's bullshit.
Did you think he was tipping pitches?
Let me explain how this works, okay? Game 6 of the 2001 World Series, Andy Pettitte tipped every single pitch from when there was a runner on base. And I'll tell you how. And I'll just use my chest. So when Andy was throwing a slider, his hands would be up high. And when he was throwing a breaking ball, his hands would be down low. So you can't tip your pitch during the pitch. A pitch tip is something you see from where his hands are set, how his glove is angled, something. It's not during the one. There's few hitters alive, if ever.
So it's pre-pitch.
It's always pre-pitch. And if you remember when Houston was cheating, they were giving the signal before the pitcher wound up. Hitters maybe Tony Gwynn, maybe Barry Bonds could see in the middle of a delivery something different. But that's not how it works. And when you tell when a hitter is giving a tip, when I would, you know, as a starting pitcher, I had a lot of free time, so I would watch things and pick it up. When you're telling hitters, 9 times out of 10, you go into the tunnel because you don't want someone picking up on camera. Hey, listen, they know you're tipping, or they're, you know what I'm saying? Just little stuff like that. But you don't call a guy over and go, oh, it's not that quick of a conversation. He might have said something like, hey, he started everybody off fastball, blah, 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 or something like that. But if you look at the pitches, there wasn't a pitch that somebody was waiting on that went out and hit a nasty pitch. Lance will tell you, he was middle, making big mistakes in the middle of the plate. You can't do that.
Curt, you know, in the NFL, like you just said, pre-pitch, a quarterback would do this. Some quarterbacks will go, yeah, and you know they're going to throw the ball, and you're going like this. Hey,
you know what? Hey, Dan, you know what the example I always use is I heard some old NFL linemen talk about how an offensive lineman was on his hands.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's
leaning forward is run.
Right.
Back is pass.
Right. You pick that up pre-play. You don't pick that up during the play. Right. The Mike linebacker is the guy who might see something during a play with the guy in motion or whatever.
Right. And he echoes it down the line.
Right. But you don't do it because once the play happens, once the pitch starts, the athlete's in there. And I guarantee you, and it's funny because I'll tell you a quick Bond story, but for the most part, hitters like Tony Gwynn would say, you know, I'm not looking at, I can't look at it. They're looking at, so hitters have this box. It's where the thrower's hand comes through. That's what they're looking at always. They're not going to look down at your feet in the mid delivery and then look up at the box. Like that's where they're keyed into. So they're not moving their heads looking around for, oh, his legs this way when he's in mid wind up and all this other. That's not how it works. And I maybe one guy in a million might do that, but that's not how it works. And again, when you're talking to somebody about a pitch tip, it's not a 3-second conversation. It's a hey, listen, he's doing this or whatever. Because the one thing you don't want to do is cross a guy up, right? That would be the word. Like you don't want to be rushing on a pass and get a run block.
Yeah,
because you're screwed.
Get killed.
Right, and you don't want to be sitting. Hey, he's throwing fastballs here when he does this, and all of a sudden you get a curveball and you look like a complete idiot.
Curt, I'll tell you what. I asked Pedro this one time, and I said to him, "It's funny you're saying this here." And I go to Pedro, I go, "You know, it seemed to me you were a better pitcher after your arm injury." He goes, "I had to come from different arm angles."
Yeah,
because people were, you know, I didn't have the same juice that I had when I was younger, like I was in Montreal or in Los Angeles. I had to come from different angles.
He
so
was,
you adjust.
He was a different cat. He had a baseball IQ. Like Pedro, I worked as hard as I could to talk to him to learn stuff. And one of the things I found out was Pedro was very visual. He could feel a guy, sense a guy moving in the box. I would never see that because I never even saw the hitter. Like I would just go with, and I told all the catchers that I had, you see something, tap your chest and put the pitch back. If I shake a pitch off and you want it, tap your chest and put it back. That means to me, you've seen something and this is what you want. I'll throw it with conviction. Petey could see that from the mound. Like, oh, I saw him move up in the box. I saw him move back in the box. So I did this or did this. That was like Maddox. Those guys were savants.
Curt, this kid Suarez, he is unbelievable. Have you been more impressed with the starting pitchers or the bullpen of the Phillies so far?
Well, obviously the bullpen, because
I don't think they've given up a run.
Well, Houston, that was one of Houston's big advantages, right? Coming in, it was Houston had to shut it down bullpen, and Philadelphia was trying to mix and match. I think Thompson's done a phenomenal job with his arms. And the hard part about the bullpen now is you ride them till they break in October. I mean, if you remember in 2004, Keith Folk threw like 200 innings in October. Yeah. He was throwing 2 or 3 inning saves every night. He was going old school with his saves. And the Philly bullpen's been phenomenal. Suarez was a huge lift for them just because they only had to get 8-9 outs, right? I mean, that's the big thing. People don't understand. I had an argument a long time ago with Trevor Bauer. When Trevor Bauer got hurt and came out of the game, remember he cut his finger and he was bleeding? Yep. I said, you helped cost your team the World Series. And he's like, well, we won the game. I said, that's not the point. You left 7 innings to your bullpen, 8 innings to your bullpen. That's 24 outs they had to get that they wouldn't have otherwise had to get. And that has a trickle-down effect as you go deeper into a series.
You think that's why Dusty kept what's-his-name in last night?
I don't know. Listen, and this is kind of hard. I want this to come off the right. I love Dusty Baker. I always loved Dusty Baker. All right?
Hey, Curt, I worked on the pre- and post game for the Giants. I got to tell you, man.
I don't think he's a good October manager by any stretch. I really don't. And I think the track record has shown that. I think a lot of times, and I played with managers who are guilty of it. You do in October what you did April to September because you always have, well, this is what I've always done. It failed this time. I did what I've always done. Look no further than Fergosi bringing in Mitch Williams in Game 6 of the World Series. Mitch had nothing. He was done. He had thrown a billion pitches. He was gassed. He had nothing. But that was our closer. You go with Roger Mason or Larry Anderson, who was pitching well. Maybe we get to a Game 7.
I've said this before that when I said, Curt, I covered the Giants, and when that Angel series, I'm like, this guy cost Bonds a series, man, because Bonds hit like 419 in that series, and you're like this. Dusty has had, for whatever reason, why is that sometimes, Curt, that managers come out? It's like coaches in the NFL. Marty Schottenheimer is one of the winningest coaches of all time in NFL history. He's 4-14 in the postseason.
Because it's different. It's different. You can't do the same things you did in the regular season in the postseason. You just can't. There's gut in the postseason. There's a gut to this. The postseason, to me, is where the great managers who know their players put them in the best position to succeed.
Is it more of a gut decision in the postseason or analytics or both?
Sabermetrics is losing baseball in October. Period. Ask Blake Snell in Tampa Bay about sabermetrics. Ask the Toronto Blue Jays. Kevin Gausman coming out of that game cost them that. I mean, there are so many situations. It wasn't the manager's gut taking the pitcher out. It was the manager's gut from somebody in the front office saying, you can't let him see this lineup 3 times around. October's a different animal. And I know that, but it is. It just is. And players play differently, and you have to know your players. I remember vividly in 2000 when I got traded to Arizona, Buck Showalter came up to me in like August, and he said, listen, if we get to the playoffs, you're going Game 1. And I'm like, well, hold on, dude. You got Randy Josh. I mean, he's like pretty good. You got Game 1. I mean, and it was Randy. When I got to Arizona, Randy was apprehensive about October. And I was like, I said, we had a conversation one time, and I said, October's a chance to do something to make people remember you for the rest of their lives. And his response to me was, October is a chance for people to forget everything you did good during the season.
You know what, Curt? I've had this argument with people when they say, if you had to have a pitcher pitch a game, 9 innings, World Series, would you take Clemens or would you take Schilling? And I go, I'm going with Schilling because Schilling's record proves it. If you look at Roger Clemens' record, I think he's like 11-10, 12-10. The expectations of you to have to carry that team, I guess certain people, they accept that and they appreciate that. And it must have motivated you, Curt, because if he told you that, I wonder what your stretch run was when Showalter told you that. As you went down, as you guys got closer to the playoffs, you must have been hell the last month of the season.
Well, I was actually the opposite. In 2000, I was coming off surgery. I went right down the toilet, and I was the main reason we didn't make the playoffs, which kind of stunk. Okay. But in 2001, you know, I got Game 1 and Game 5 of the Cardinal series. I got Game 1 of the World Series, Game 4 and Game 7 for a reason. And again, you know, those guys that you name about in October, you can put a list together of the greatest pitchers ever. And April to September, I got beat by probably all of them. I got beat by none of them in October. And you know, when I think the number was 5. I threw 5 games in my team, win or go home. My team never went home. And it's because I lived for that. That was that was the moment. Those were the games where I wanted the entire world on my back. And I loved that expectation. I embraced that. I knew I was going to be throwing harder. I was going to be more focused. All of the things that maybe, you know, you have. I always say there's 2 types of players in October. There's the guys whose butt tightens up and the guys whose butt relaxes. I was always a relaxed guy because I knew everybody else's butthole was puckering, and that I could take advantage of that.
Sometimes I look at Clayton Kershaw and I see Madison Bumgarner and I see Clemens and I see you. It's just a different animal. Your thoughts on Thompson? On how he's handled
what a great job he's done. And listen, Philadelphia is like Boston. It's like New York. You have to manage 3 games. You have to manage the media before the game. You have to manage the game, and you have to manage the media after the game. Since he's taken over, you've seen literally nothing on the front page other than the game news. And that's not easy to do in Philadelphia. Phenomenal job. Clearly, the guys love him. And I'm happy for him because I'm happy for the city. You know, it's a city of very blue collar, hard nosed, hard ass, hard working people who absolutely love their sports. And you can see, I mean, this World Series is just off the rails.
Have you been surprised by it?
No,
I don't think there's anything wrong with Houston. I think they're big hitters like Altuve. I think they got to show up eventually here because Curt, they weren't even really hitting going into the series.
No,
I mean, their pitching staff was killing it.
Right.
What is there anything wrong with Houston, or is Philly just not playing?
No, Philadelphia's beating them.
Yeah,
I mean, I think the Phillies are going to win this series. It might not go 7, but I think they're going to win this series, and it's going to be because of Game 1.
Because they beat Verlander.
You think about the storylines going in where Houston's undefeated the postseason, Verlander, this and that. Phillies have Nola. If they beat Nola Game 1, it's 1-0, and you know. But again, go back to '93. We played the Atlanta Braves. I strike out the first 5 hitters of the game, and the stadium is going berserk. We score a run in the bottom of the first, and I don't know if it was true, but they felt like the momentum for the entire series changed. We beat them in a walk-off Game 1, and all of a sudden it was, oh my God, these guys are for real. And I felt very much the same. These guys, Philly was swinging the bats. They didn't stop. Houston's pitching staff couldn't stop them, and I think we're sitting here, and I think if you're in those clubhouses, and again, it's never as drastic as fans make it seem. I guarantee Houston's sitting there thinking, oh, you know, we're going to even it up tonight. But there's a lot of guys in that Philly clubhouse sitting there thinking, I cannot wait till this game starts.
You know, Curt, I'll tell you, of all the things I've covered and all the things I've done in my professional career, getting a baseball in front of the world and you're being told to go out and win a ball game or a go-home game. And when I see guys like Verlander or yourself or other guys like Wheeler, he must have been so disappointed that he got rocked like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have thought that may have sent, but how much did you ever believe in emotions? Did you think,
You know what?
or did you have to temper your emotions?
Well, no, I never tempered my emotions. Because they were my fuel. But October's different because you compartmentalize the games. If you think about, I don't know if there's a difference in the NFL, but in the regular season, the NFL, when you're on a roll and you're winning a couple games in a row, there's a feel and a momentum and all the things that go with that. In the playoffs, you win one. That's it. In the postseason, for me, it was always the same way. I would be, the rare time that my team lost in the postseason, I was upset. But the next night, I wasn't even during the regular season. I was miserable for 4 days, just miserable, a miserable, unsufferable bastard. In the playoffs, didn't matter. Game's over. We got to win tonight. And so I think it's way easier on a starting pitcher, good from a bad outing to the next start in the postseason than it is during the regular season.
Curt, when you Nola going, what does he have to do tonight? And again, they win tonight, pretty much, right? It's theirs for the taking.
Well, yeah,
because I'm with you.
Anytime you get one win away from sewing it up, the energy in the clubhouse changes dramatically because you almost feel like
you get tighter.
No, I've always felt like, oh my God, it's going to happen tonight. We're going to win tonight. Like you're one win away. You're 27 outs away from the trophy. Like that's exciting until you get to that point. But this series has been a study on command and control. You've seen guys. Lance McCullers had bad command last night. He was in and I would tell you for the novice pitchers and the people wanting to understand pitching, watch the glove and watch the catch for the catcher. Fastball command is about being able to manipulate the ball in the strike zone 3, 4, 5, 6 inches at a time. Like in the first inning, I want to find out what the umpire's corner is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a ball here. And if it's a strike, I'm going to move it out just a little bit more in the next pitch. Is that a strike too? Okay. Now I'm going to move it off the edge of the plate. So that first inning is about my fastball command in the postseason. Is about my fastball command and establishing the strike zone. These guys are not commanding the fastball. Like you're seeing, and what's called like if I'm going in on a guy, or and Bryce Harper's a great example. If I'm gonna run the ball in and keep the ball in on Bryce, every miss I miss has to be in. That's a good miss. If I'm throwing the ball in and I knock him on his ass and miss my spot, that's fine. If I try to throw the ball in and I miss middle out, that's an absolutely horseshit pitch. And so I watch for good misses and bad misses, right? Guys that are good missing, they're missing to the side of the plate they're throwing to. If they're throwing breaking balls, they're missing down in front of the plate. And these guys, and what's happening is you're seeing a lot of guys. It's a lost art in the sense it's all about the gun. Well, if I missed at 98. Well, you know what? Big league hitters can hit 98. And when you're missing in the middle of the plate, which is what's happening, bad things happen.
Boy, Curt, I never looked at it reversed. I always thought it was more dangerous because of the lack of juice pitchers had at the fifth inning. But you're saying the most dangerous part to pitching to Harper is not so much Bryce Harper, but understanding the umpire's strike zone.
Well,
because if you're going out there and you don't know the strike zone and you're forming you're playing against really two people, Harper and the ump, because you've got to determine what his strike zone is and how I can pitch to him. So
every hitter has the strike zone is broken into 9 quadrants on the scouting reports. Up and away, middle out, or up, middle up, in, middle out, middle, then down and away, down middle, down in. And nobody and red is hot, blue is cold. Obviously, nobody has red boxes all the way around. Right? Everybody has a blue box. If Bryce Harper's blue box is in an area the umpire's not calling a strike, what do? Right? So you have to mix and match, and it's on the fly that you adjust. Right? Here's Bryce's, his blue box. I guarantee you there's very few of them, and they're really small. And and it's like when Bonds was hot in 2001. You tell young pitchers, listen, if you can't hit this spot at 95, don't pitch to him. Pitch around him. And coaches were like, well, that's too much pressure. Well, tough shit. It's October. If you can't make the pitch, don't make it. He's not missing. So 98 middle is a horrible pitch. 94 in that blue box is perfect. And that's
how would you pitch Harper, knowing that he's a first fastball hitter? I mean, he's very aggressive at the plate.
I haven't seen his charts against right-handed power arms, but my guess is that you're looking at a guy who's most hitters will have a hole at their hands on the inside part of the plate. For me, very much like Bonds, I'm going to stay hard and I'm going to stay middle up in. Right, that's where he's having trouble getting the ball, and most lefties will have a little trouble getting the chase. The key is not just that they have trouble with that pitch, that they swing at it. Doesn't matter if they have trouble with the pitch and they don't swing; it's a ball. So for me, I'm going to throw the ball as hard as I can to that inner upper third.
You're going to throw it his hands,
right? And if not, I walk him. If he doesn't chase, if he doesn't chase it, I walk him. I'm fine with that. You know, he's not a 40 stolen base threat. You got to hold the runner and all the things that go with that. But I'd much rather face somebody behind him. And that's what's presenting the issues, right? Their lineup top to bottom is hitting. So, you know, in a 2004 Red Sox, there is no let up. Where they get 5 homers from 5 different guys last night?
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And they came into this. But for me, it's about power. You got to power. You're not – so Pedro Martinez said something a long time ago that I never forgot. You don't get good hitters out in the strike zone, right? You don't get Ken Griffey Jr., you don't get Bryce Harper out with a fastball in the strike zone. What you get them out with is a ball out of the strike zone. Your stuff has to be good enough to make them chase it. And the command of these guys is not – I haven't sat here and looked at a guy and said, well, he could, you know, being a fastball pitcher, regardless of your velocity, is about throwing a fastball in a fastball count to a fastball hitter and getting a positive result, right? And so – I've never felt like I'm watching a pitcher okay, this guy's just going to go 2-0 down, fastball down and away to get back in the count, blah, blah, blah. Nobody is showing me that kind of command. And that's why you're seeing the Phillies tee off the way they are, because you give them – you can't give hitters a pitch. Like, you have to go through – if Bryce Harper has 4 at-bats tonight, the Houston Astros can make maybe 1 or 2 mistakes, maybe, in those 4 at-bats. They're making 1 or 2 mistakes in at-bat, not a game. And that doesn't translate in October.
Curt, I wonder for you personally, the Arizona World Series or the Red Sox? I mean, look, the ALCS was off the charts special. That's an iconic moment for you in the ALCS. But then they go on. You guys, shit, I think the Cardinal game and the series was an afterthought. I mean, I remember it was like an afterthought. I mean, but
it was, and no disrespect to the Cardinals.
No disrespect to those guys.
The ALCS was our World Series. I'll never forget this. We were in the pre-scouting meeting for the World Series. And I went into those, and Tech went into those, because I always said I want to hear the scouts and what they had to say. And we were talking, and at the end of the meeting, and honest to God, again, no disrespect, our response to the scouting report and the meeting was, listen, I don't know if this is about whether they could beat us as opposed to whether they can even win a game. We knew they didn't have the pitching to get our lineup out. And it was like, not only are we going to win, but we probably are going to win this 4-0 because they don't have anybody that can get us out. And they didn't. You look, the first game, Wakefield went out there, we won 11-7. And then I think Pedro, Derek, and I gave up like 1 earned run over the next 3 starts. And our offense is just our offense. And we really, it was the same thing in 2007 in Colorado. Our response was to the scouting meeting was, oh my God, they have nobody in their starting rotation that can go through our lineup twice, much less once. And it's not a matter of whether they're going to win, it's whether they can even win a game. We knew we were that good. And you know that, but again, that was a very different time because we had 3 or 4 pitchers in the rotation who we knew could command the fastball and go out and execute a game plan. A lot of what I'm seeing now outside of a Verlander or you know, and these guys, I know they're trying, I'm not seeing an executable game plan. I'm seeing guys that are trying to ramp up the velocity when they get in trouble. And that's how you get beat.
Yeah, but Curt, is that because nowadays that people are scheduled to go 5 2/3? Let me get the most gas because games, right? Your complete games back in the early part of your career were insane, great complete games, and you had to think your way through 9 innings to get through to 9 innings. These guys don't have to do that today.
Well, I mean, think about the mindset of I've got to get Bryce Harper out 3, maybe 4 times tonight to win. as opposed to I've got to face Bryce Harper twice.
Right. I'm going to throw as hard as I can.
Well, it's not even that I'm going to throw as hard as I can. What it is I only have to get 15 outs. Are you kidding me? So instead of I'm going to establish my fastball because in the first inning, for the most part, during a start, you go out and you establish your fastball. In the postseason, and I almost never would I go out in the first inning and throw all 3 or 4 of my pitches ever. I would establish my fastball, my split, and then my curveball and slider would show up second, third. Those are pitches I was setting up to use my second, third, and fourth at bats against guys. If I only need to get you out twice, I'm coming with the kitchen sink from the first at bat. Completely different mindset. Way less stress. I mean, again, for me, the advantage was, listen, I've game planned this game. I know how I'm going to get my 27. The Yankees in 0-1 were a great example. I faced them 3 times in 9 days. My game plan was to get 27 outs of same 9 guys, 3 days, three straight starts. And I adjusted as the game went on. If I only had to get 45 outs instead of, 81 or 81 outs, my God, that's it's a different game. And it is a different game. I remember they were talking about starting Syndergaard, and people were saying, well, hell, if we start Syndergaard, we'll be ecstatic if we get 3 solid innings out of him. And I'm thinking to myself, wait, what? This is a dude that throws mid-90s. And there's a guy that will to me, has frustrated me his entire career. He should be striking out 320 guys a year, and he doesn't. And it's because he doesn't have command of his fastball in the strike zone. And it's hard to watch.
Hey, Curt, when I watch a ball game now, I think of you, and you know what? I could just see you out there. You're in the 4th inning, you're giving up 1 run, or you've given up 1 hit or 2 hits, and the guy comes out there and he's looking. I could see you go fucking sit down.
No, I would have been that guy. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't have disrespected my manager, but I would have been that guy that you would have had to. You would have had to have security. I mean, because I was raised that's my game. That's my responsibility. 27 outs are mine. That's what I'm getting paid for. I come out after 7. I've still left, a third of the game to the bullpen. That's not me doing my job. And that's a mentality that's not taught anymore. These guys are, and I say baby, but they're taken care of they don't throw over 75, 90 pitches in a minor league game. I had a couple of minor league seasons where I threw almost 200 innings. And 185 innings wins the Cy Young. It's like, wait, 185 innings is my inning total in mid-August. I mean, are you kidding me?
Yeah, you're a 200-plus guy.
But I'm saying that it's a different mentality. It's not because they're babies it's because they're raised a different way now. And the quickest way to get somebody hurt is to ask them to do something for the first time in the big leagues. You can't ask a guy to pitch in the 8th inning with a tying run on 3rd for the first time in his career in Dodger Stadium. He has to have done that in Greensboro, North Carolina, or Elmira, New York, in rookie ball, and understand, you have to pitch through those places to win and lose those games to understand the proper way to get through them.
I'm going to ask you the final question here. Dusty Baker again. I want to get back to that because I love the guy. And and I know you do too, Curt. We got great respect for the guy. But is he the reason that the Astros won't win this series?
No.
Okay.
No. October is all about players executing.
Okay. Player accountability.
He is no more at fault than Aaron Boone is for the Yankees sucking. The Yankees sucked because they didn't perform. They got outplayed. They got outpitched. They got outhit. All those things had nothing to do with Aaron Boone. And that's October is all about your players coming through and performing, period.
If you're Verlander, do you demand the ball in the next start if whatever happens tonight?
Oh, I would have already had that conversation. As soon as I came out of game 1, I would have been like, give me the ball game 4. Are
you surprised he's not pitching tonight? See, to me, because when I heard who's going for them tonight, I went like this. I'm going to talk to Schilling tonight. He'd have been in that locker room with Francona going, I'm going tonight.
I remember very vividly after Game 5 of the 93 World Series, I threw 147 pitches and we beat Toronto 2-0. After the game, I couldn't wait to get out of the press room. I went to Jim Fragosi's office and I said, "Listen, I'll be ready for Game 7. I'll be ready for Game 7." And that was 2 days from then. I was like, I don't care. RJ came in Game 7 of 0-1 after pitching Game 6. Like that's what October. That's what and that's what October is. You may never be here again. Don't leave anything in the dugout.
Dude, I can't believe Verlander's not on the hill tonight.
Well, I don't know.
No. I'm just saying it's you're talking about the old school mentality. It's
right, but I also and I think he's very old school as a pitcher. I mean, he has all that. He wants to get into the 8th and 9th and all the things that go with that. It's a different game now, and I don't know what his relationship is with Dusty. And maybe he already has. Maybe he went to Dusty and said, "I want this ball for this game," and Dusty said, "Dude, no, that ain't happening."
Did you ever do this, Curt? Did you ever go to your manager in one of these series? Hey, if you needed me for 3 innings.
Absolutely.
I could give it to you.
I think it was game 5. We were down 3-0 to the Yankees in 2004. A game 5, Wakefield, Lowe, and I went to the bullpen.
In the dugout. You go over to him going, hey,
we went in. No, we bypassed that. We went in and put our spikes on, and at the break in the 12th inning, we all walked to the bullpen. We weren't even giving him a chance to say it. We're like, hey, we're here. We're available. And the place went nuts when we were walking to the bullpen. But that's what you do. That's what this is. This is it's hard to explain to people who haven't played at the professional level. And I get, people were great high school athletes and college athletes. But when you're on the stage, and you know this, when you're on the stage in front of millions of people, you ask certain things of yourself that you might not otherwise ask. And this is the time to do it.
Yeah. You're good. We're in a championship game. Well, the only way I'm out of here is if someone shoots me.
Well, yeah, the word unavailable isn't part of my lexicon.
Hey, I got the whole offseason, right, Curt, to heal up.
Yep.
Hey, my friend, enjoy the game tonight. I am such an honor to have you on.
Thank you, bud. It's always good to talk to you.
Thank you so much. The legendary Curt Schilling. All right, guys, that was absolutely awesome. God, it was awesome talking to Curt Schilling. I love listening to that man. Limited 2 in the postseason. Please hit the like button. Keep it here on the National Football Show.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.